So you want to play Cosmic Encounter? Of course you do. I mean, you're probably watching this video because someone, or me, probably me, I know has shoved this video in your face so we don't have to explain it, for the 50th time. Anyway, this game's incredibly fun and has almost infinite replay value. It only makes sense that we want you to play this game. Oh, what's that I hear? You don't know how to play Cosmic Encounter? Well, lucky for you, you came to the right place. I could show you the ins and outs of this amazing game. First, let's set up everything properly. Every player gets one color, and with that one color, that player gets 5 home planets that make up their system, 20 ships, and a point marker. All of the planets get 4 ships placed upon them. The point marker goes with the warp piece to mark the score of all the players. All of your planets become your home system, and all of the other players' planets become foreign systems to you. Each person is dealt 8 cards for their starting hand and 7 alien powers, from which you will only choose 1 to start. Pretty simple. How to win the game is to get 5 colonies in foreign systems. They could be spread out on one player system, whatever. What defines a foreign colony is at least one of your ships on a planet that isn't in your system. Doesn't matter how many ships you have on that planet, it only counts as 1 foreign colony. It takes 5 to win unless you want to play a shorter game variant where you can play for 4 colonies. You might be asking yourself, how do I get these foreign colonies? I want to dominate the galaxy. Well, buddy, to get these foreign colonies, you must go through encounters. Encounters are the most common way to get points. All encounters are split into multiple phases that we are going to go through step by step to explain what happens in each and all the quirks that lie within. The start of every encounter starts at start turn. Crazy. This means that the next player starts their turn here. The turn of play goes clockwise around the table, so after the person who was chosen to go first has done their 1 or 2 encounters, the play shifts to the next person. This person then becomes the offense. They will set out and try to wrest control of a planet from another player. Play continues in this pattern until one person has 5 points and wins the game. Once during this phase, the offense can take 1 ship out of the warp and put it on any of their colonies, or on the hyperspace gate if they have no colonies, home or foreign. The Destiny phase determines who is the person you will be fighting. If you draw another person's color from the Destiny deck, you have to fight that player in their home system. Though if you draw your own color, you have a few options at your disposal. If you have an empty planet in your home system, you can take 1 encounter to land your ships on that empty planet for free and reestablish a home colony. Another option, when you draw your own color, is to fight another person's colony off of one of your home planets. The encounter stays the same, but you will not get a point when you win, but you will knock down another person's score and reestablish a home colony at the same time. If you don't want to do either of these, you can draw again and then fight another person. Once the opposing player has been chosen by the Destiny deck, they will become the defense. This will make the 2 of you the main players. You, the offensive main player, called the offense, and your opponent becomes the defensive main player, called the defense. And when you go into their system, you choose which planet you will have your encounter on. When you launch, you must have at least 1 ship committed to this encounter to a max of 4. Generally, the more you send, the better the chances you have of winning. You can take ships from any of your colonies to launch in this counter, but take care. If you take all of your ships off of a colony, home or foreign, you will lose that colony and cannot move ships back onto that planet. You will lose either a point or potentially your alien power, which is another thing I will explain later. An important note, when you launch your attack into a player's system and you pick the planet you fight on, and that planet has multiple colonies on it by multiple different players, only the ships that belong to the defense are directly involved in this encounter. The other ships on the planet do not count to either side's total. Now this phase is where the real fun begins. You get to involve all the people around this table in this wild conflict. Once the offense has picked which planet they'll be launching their assault, both players can call for allies. The offense calls for who he wants. It could be anyone but the defense, some people or no people at all, and then the defense does the same. Once the main players have both called their allies, the players can choose which side they want to be on, but not both. Now, the timing is important. You can choose to do all the allies join at once or one at a time, starting from the offense and going to the left. It is important to do so to avoid bandwagoning. Once the other players have joined the side, they become either offensive or defensive allies. During the planning phase, you will select a counter card out of your hand and then place it face down. This phase is actually split into two parts, the one where you are deciding which card to choose but have not chosen it yet, and the other where the card has already been placed face down, waiting to be revealed. Certain cards only have their effects happen during one of the two mini phases, so timing is important. After the cards have been laid down, it is now time to reveal them. When the cards are revealed, there are a few variations of how the conflict will resolve. If an attack card is met with another attack card, you add up all the ships in the encounter plus the value of the card for both sides. Whichever side has a higher total wins. In case of tie, ties go to the defender. If an attack card is opposed by a negotiate, no matter what the number totals are, the side that played a negotiate loses. But the main player that revealed the negotiate steal cards out of the opposing main player's hand. They get a number of cards equal to how many ships they had in the encounter. These stolen cards are called compensation. If two negotiates are played into each other, the main players have 1 minute to make a deal. When a deal starts, all allied ships go back to their colonies and the main players discuss. The main players can give up to 2 things in the deal-making stage. They can either give cards out of their hand or let the other player land a few ships on one colony that they control. A simple deal probably looks a little something like this. Hey, do you want to give me a planet and I'll give you a planet? Sure thing, old buddy, old pal, old friend of mine. Now, if the two players don't come to an agreement within a minute, they both lose 3 ships to the warp and the counter is over. If a morph card is revealed, it copies the value of the other revealed encounter card, and then the results act accordingly, as stated before. If both players play a morph card, both sides lose. They just lose. And all people involved lose their ships. Now that the totals have been tallied and the victor has been discovered, we find out what you win. If the offense wins, the offense and all of their allies move on to the planet and coexist. This usually means that all of the people get a point. If the defensive side wins, the defense gets nothing. But the defensive allies get defensive rewards. These are either cards from the deck, ships out of the warp, or the combination of the two. The amount they get is equal to the amount of ships they had in the encounter. So if a player had 2 ships as defensive allies and their side wins, they could either get 2 ships out of the warp, 2 cards out of the deck, or 1 card and 1 ship. It might go without saying, but whichever side loses has all of their ships get sent to the warp. Now, if you are the offense and you won your first encounter or had a successful deal, you can choose to go again for a second encounter. As long as you have at least 1 encounter card in your hand, you could choose to go again. And if you do choose to go again, the play goes back to the regroup phase and continues from there. Now that we got all of that out of the way, now I'd explain the different types of cards. Now, most of the cards tell you what they do, when they do their thing, and as what player you can use it. We've already gone over encounter cards, so that's out of the way. Reinforcement cards are the easiest things to explain next. After the encounter cards have been revealed, any player in the encounter can use reinforcement cards to add to either side's total. People generally use this to break ties or push their tides total up enough to win. Artifact cards are where
fun begins.
They do a bunch of stuff in a variety of situations. Every artifact card says what it does, at what phase, and what role you have to be to use it. As an example, Mobius Tubes is an artifact card that frees all ships that have been sent to the warp. You can do this only when you're the offense during your regroup phase. Just read the cards and you'll be fine. Now there's another type of cards called flare cards. I'm going to come back to these. Probably by now that you can see that cards are pretty important. You want to know how to get more of them. The way to get more cards are as follows. When you are a defensive ally and you win, you get rewards, which could be cards from the deck. You could steal cards out of an opposing main player's hand when you negotiate into an attack card, and those are called compensation cards. Now, there are two instances in which you'll be forced to dump your whole hand and get a fresh new hand of 8 cards. If you are the offense during your start turn, and it turns out you don't have a single encounter card in your hand, you must discard your whole hand and draw a new 8. If you are the defense, and it is planning phase, and you have no encounter cards which to put down, you'll discard your whole hand and draw a new 8. Now, timing is important here. You cannot use any card you got in this hand except to put an encounter card down. Once the card is picked, and then it is immediately the second part of the planning phase, which then you may use other cards in your hand. Now, for both of these situations where you dump your hand to draw a new 8, and you still don't have an encounter card after you redraw, you repeat the process until you have at least one encounter card. Now, you may be thinking, you can play a full game with all these mechanics, we can even start right now, right? And you'd be wrong, because the best part about this game is the alien powers. The alien powers are what makes this game so much fun and so replayable. The powers help you win, some are better than others, and they do a bunch of wacky, cool things. Some help you win encounters, some help you get resources back in ships and cards, some help you mitigate losses, and some powers, when you win harder! The alien power sheet explains what the power does, when it can be used, and as what player it can be used by, just like artifacts. Powers do all sorts of things, and the interactions between these powers are basically endless. But be careful. If you don't have at least one ship on 3 of your 5 home colonies, you lose your alien power. The sheet gets put upside down and doesn't do anything until you can reestablish up to 3 home colonies. In other games, it has to be at least above half the amount of foreign colonies. There are many variant game types that you can play with these alien powers, but that will be covered in a different video. Now that I've explained the alien powers, I can finally explain the last type of cards, called flares. There's one flare for every alien power in the game. There's 2 parts to the card. The top part of the card is called the wild part of the flare, and the bottom part of the card is called the super part of the flare. As I said before, there's one flare corresponding to each alien power. If you are not the alien power corresponding to the flare, then use the wild part. If you are currently the same power that is on the flare card, you may use the super part of the card. Now, there are a few unique aspects to the flare cards. First, they do not get discarded after being used, unlike every other card. Unless stated otherwise on the card, the flare goes back into your hand. And if you have multiple flare cards, you can only use 1 per encounter. Please remember when you are setting up the game to put all of the players' corresponding flares into the card deck so that everyone can possibly get their super flare. With all the cards and powers and phases, there will be times where people will want to do the actions at the same time in the same phase. In case of timing conflict, it goes in this order: the offense, the defense, and then all other players going left of the offense. And with that, you know how to play Cosmic Encounter the right way. In my next video, I will explain the real reason why I think this game has so much replayability. There's so many ways to play this game with the interactions being so plentiful. And now, with the knowledge given to you by this video, I want you to go out and play this game, which, in my humble opinion, is the best board game there is.